right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. Today, I'm honored to have Andraya Carter with us, and she has a very fascinating story. So, at an early age, she showed a lot of promise. So, from high school state champion to playing for the Lady Vols to then being on ESPN, she's always performed at a high level. And something that stuck out to me about her was she has a comment that she says she doesn't believe that it's ever a lack of time, but it's a lack of focus. And so I think that is something that's obviously allowed her to get to the pinnacles and the skill sets that she has today. So thanks so much for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Well, I'm obsessed with that quote. It was almost like a gut check for myself when I first read it, and I had to pass it along because I was like, "That's so true."
It is very true. Yeah, it's very rarely a lack of time. I agree with you 100% on that.
Yeah,
So
we have a lot of time, and I was very quick, especially during basketball season, to be like, "Oh, I just don't have time. I don't have time." And like 100%, there is time. Like if I focused a little bit in one area, I probably would have much more time. You know what I mean? Like it's wild, but we do have time for sure.
yes, definitely. I agree. I always say it's a lack of focus and or a lack of it being a priority, right? Because if it's a priority to me, I always get it done. So
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
well, this is just the first minute, guys. You guys are gonna be in for a great show the rest of the time. So, just as a reminder, if this is the first time tuning in, the name of the podcast is "Who Knew in the Moment," and the whole premise is, as we're going on in life, there are these moments that happen, and in them, we're not necessarily sure where they're going to lead us, but in hindsight, we can look back and say that was the catalyst to this next thing. And so, just to kick it off, I want to ask you a little bit about Coach Overstreet. So you say that she has this, phenomenal impact to you at 7 years old. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, yes, Pam Overstreet, Lexi Overstreet, who actually played softball at Tennessee, but we grew up playing basketball together. But Coach Pam, my dad, he was always big in sports, and so I was playing on like rec league, and Coach Pam was Lexi's mom and the coach. I think I missed like the first day of tryouts and showed up the second day or something, and she was like, "She's on my team," and so she put me on her team, and I don't know like how the conversation went exactly, but she pretty much told my parents, you need to put her in AAU basketball, you need to put her in travel basketball, she needs to play year round, she can go to the next level, right? And that's
Yeah.
when my parents started talking to me about it, like, oh, and that's when I started looking at Tennessee and thinking about things like that. It's 7 years old, which is crazy, but whatever Coach Overstreet saw in me, she was it was incredible. And I had the best time playing for her, playing on
Yeah.
that team. And it was just like, for my first experience playing basketball, to enjoy it so much with Coach Overstreet, and for her to just really push my parents, like get her in everything,
Yeah.
100% where it all started.
And you latch on to this and you end up telling your parents at a very young age, hey, I'm going to play for Tennessee one day.
Oh, absolutely. This is my parents and my dad, we started watching basketball, and
Yeah.
just he's like, you could be really good at this. You want to watch the game? Let's watch the teams play. And I loved Tamika Catchings in Tennessee, and the orange and the Pat front. And then like as I got a little bit older, like into my like preteen years, I was reading Pat's books, and then my nana, she loved Candace Parker, and so it just kind of like just evolved into this big
Yeah.
Tennessee thing. But I definitely took it and ran with it for sure.
So that's something I want to dig into early on, right? Because there's a lot of kids that say, I want to do this one day, but they don't put the effort in, or, whatever it is. So what do you think it is about you that allowed you to say, not only do I want to do that, but I'm going to match and do whatever it takes to get there too?
I don't know. I've always been really competitive growing up. My cousins and we would play sports, and I was always with the boys. We would
Yeah.
go to Bruce Street Park, and the girls would be hanging out, and I'd be on the court or on the field, or at recess, I played football with the boys, and it was fun to me, and I was really fast. And so the boys, they always respected me. Like they would pick me
Yeah.
on their teams. I guess I was just really fortunate to have just awesome experiences that kind of grew my competitive edge. And I wanted to be really, really good at everything. And I think
Yeah.
it just kind of went from there. Like I remember being at the bus stop. It's like 7 in the morning before middle school, and me and all the boys on my street are playing football in the street. So like the cars would come by, and I wanted to be best at this street football before I'd like go to school sweaty. Just I have all these memories of just being really competitive and
Yeah.
just loving it. Like I just loved competing. And then when I started basketball, it was so much fun. And my dad, he just pushed me so much, and my parents too, because I think you have to have that competitive edge and you have to love it. And but my parents too, they were also so, I say strict. I think they say like goal oriented or but it was just like you do your homework first, then you can go outside, and you have it. You go to bed at 10 or 9 o'clock when I was younger, or 10 o'clock,
Yeah.
and you put like you have to get sleep if you want to be good at this. You have to eat if you want to be good at this. And so, as soon as they knew that that's what I wanted, it was like they just lined me up to
Yeah.
put me with the best, put me with great trainers, and they put me on great teams. And so it's just, I tell people all the time, I was very, very fortunate to just be given like one thing after the next, where all I had to do was work hard and have
Yeah.
fun. And I just would knock over one thing after the next that my parents did for me. So I was really lucky in that sense.
Absolutely. That's phenomenal. So in the 8th grade, you get your first scholarship offer.
Yes.
I mean, let's be honest. When for me in the 8th grade, I didn't really even, know what that meant, but it sounded cool, right? I mean, talk a little bit about like that type of a moment as an 8th grader.
I think it was crazy. And, I just switched schools. I just got to Buford High School. And I really think that was probably the biggest thing in getting my offer, because I really wasn't that good. Like I was maybe better than a lot of the 8th graders at the time, but I was going to play for a really, really amazing high school coach, Coach
Yeah.
Durden. He's just really well known. And I was also playing at the time for a really talented travel coach in Tim Ellis, and those two know each other. And so I think that in showing promise in the 8th grade and being on an AAU team, they were 2 years older than me with an outstanding coach. And then in knowing that I was going to also play high school for Jean Durden, it was kind of like, oh yeah, let's just offer her. She's going to be fine. Like she's on the right path. And I guess they just had this, I don't want to say blind faith, because like I said, I had great coaches coming
Yeah.
to that were going to coach me at that age, but just my athleticism and the coaches that I had and the teams that I was on, there were a few. It started with Georgia. Actually, maybe it started with Penn State, if I can remember that correctly, which was weird because I had never even like talked to Penn State before. But
Yeah.
it was like Penn State, Georgia, and then a few others came in. And I don't even think as an 8th grader, I had a concept really of
Yeah.
what it meant. Like, oh, you have a scholarship offer. And I'm like, okay, like
Yeah.
that's cool. And so it didn't really start to hit me until like 9th grade, when the letters like really started coming in. And then that year, I was still waiting on UConn and Tennessee because I just wanted those two. So that's when
Yeah.
I started thinking like, oh, this is where I could really go to college, and started thinking about college and what it was going to be. So it was crazy as an 8th grader. I don't even think I had a concept of what it meant, but I knew it was
Yeah.
cool and
Yeah.
a good thing. So yeah.
So into your freshman year, you have a very high and then a very motivating event that happened. So freshman year, we get a state championship, but then we get cut from the US 16 team.
Yep.
Talk about those two experiences and maybe some fuel in the fire there.
That was brutal. That was so hard. And I remember being heartbroken. Like the state championship was amazing. It was the best, like the team and the energy and everything. And then you get invited to the tryouts and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is so great. And you're just on this high, like you said. And then I get to tryouts and felt really good at tryouts. The last day, maybe, I get hit in the face and I'm like a little shaken up. I didn't participate in part of the last day, and I end up getting cut and like being a reserve. And it was crazy because I remember going back to Buford High School when I didn't make the team, and I was so embarrassed, and I didn't want to tell anybody. Like everyone was like, how'd it go? How'd it go? Like, saw you were in Colorado. And I would just be like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it. But
Yeah.
I noticed that I went really hard. Like we have this thing called Breakfast Club at Buford, and it's
Okay.
morning workouts, like
Yeah.
7 a.m. I think it was Monday through Friday. And I was going so hard in Breakfast Club. And I had an incredible motivation to be better. And it also taught me at a really young age that like it doesn't really matter what you've already done. It only matters
Mm,
what you're doing, because it
yeah.
didn't matter that I won a state championship, that we were the first one. Like all those players at Team USA, they'd all probably won state championships too, right? So it was just a very good reality check. It was
Yeah.
a hard reality check. I remember one of my best friends at Buford, her name's Audrey, and she like even made a joke. She was like, I think I lost the ball in Breakfast Club, and she was like, that's why you didn't make the USA team. And by the way, she's like the best ever. She was always checking me. And
Yeah.
I remember being like, you know what? Like, you're right. That's why I didn't make the USA team, because I'm losing the basketball. And so it was a really good reality check, and just letting you know that it doesn't matter what you've done. Like nobody cares what you've already done. So
Yes. Well, so that experience, I mean, I'm sure we all wish we could rewrite it and you would have made it, but because you didn't, sophomore year comes around and you're going. And sophomore year, not only do you win another state championship, but you also get to do the thing you said you're going to do from from 7 years old.
yes, yeah, that is true. I had a great summer. That next sophomore year, I had a great sophomore year, and really had a good summer after USA. Then
Mm-hmm.
going into my sophomore year, and the summer after USA happened, I was playing travel ball. Met Pat for the first time in person. She signed this little hotel card for me and gave it to me. I was freaking out. My teammates made me go introduce myself. I like almost passed out doing it. So shout out to the Georgia Elite for always pushing me, my whole team. Um, and then Pat came and watched me in the fall and at a game in high school. And it was crazy because I think I only had like 8 points in that game,
Yeah.
but I had like 8 steals and a lot of rebounds and just played really, really hard. And the offer came after that game. I remember being upset because I was like, she's not going to offer me. Like, I only had 8 points. It's just not going to happen. And when she offered, my dad, who's just the most, I don't even know how to describe him. He's very just sensible. He's always bringing me down to earth. He's just very smart. He's just a very logical guy.
Yeah.
I was like, Dad, I want to commit. I want to commit to Tennessee. And he was like, you can commit to Tennessee if you win a state championship. If you don't, I will not allow you to commit to Tennessee. So thanks to my dad, I had a ton of motivation, unbeknownst to anyone except me and him.
Yeah.
If I won a state championship, then I could commit to Tennessee. So I won. The next week after, I talked to Pat and I was like, we won, and I want to come to Tennessee. So it was another high. It was great.
Absolutely. So just talk a little bit about the game where she came to. And I know you mentioned, hey, I didn't necessarily score a lot, but I did a lot of other things really well. I'm sure it's a little bit stressful, intimidating to know that like this person that you look up to so much is going to be coming to watch you and evaluate you, right?
It was so stressful. Oh my gosh. But it's hard because when you're at like a tournament and you see Pat and you see, Shay Ralph, and you see just all these coaches that are there, but they're watching like my team, and they're probably watching some players on the other team. So like
Yeah.
it's like there's a little less pressure. Like if I do something really well, I'll get their attention. But if I don't do something really well, they might not even be watching me. So it's okay. Like if I mess up, there's like less pressure. But when Pat or whoever would come, but especially Pat, but if anybody would come to like a high school game and they're there to watch you, it's like they're probably watching. They're watching. I'm like, how I get water? Should I sit up? Should I even drink water? Do I even want to look like I need water? I don't know. You're just like
Yep.
thinking about every single thing. And maybe that's just me because I'm an overthinker pretty naturally. But I remember thinking that she was watching every single thing that I did. Like my shoe's untied. Should I tie it right now or should I just play through it? Because what looks better. I don't know. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's insane, that feeling, especially at that age. But it's one that I look back and just laugh about because it was so stressful.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think one thing that I'll tell you, so I had the fortunate opportunity to coach basketball after I got done playing in college. And I always told kids before I was coming, I was like, honestly, it doesn't matter if you have 2 points tonight or 102 points, because I already know if you're good or bad, right? Like I'm coming because you're good. I just want to see all those other things that you're talking about, right? Like,
Right.
hey, did you give your teammate a high five when they messed up, or how'd you interact? So rest assured, young ballers that are listening, don't stress out about it.
Yes.
The coach already knows you're good.
Yes, absolutely. If they're there, it's because you're good. You're already good.
That's right. So then junior year, you go for the three-peat, and then we get to senior year, and you're going for a four-peat.
Another low.
So talk about that, because it's not like it was just like this horrible season and we fell like way short. We get runner-up.
Yeah, that season was hard times 10 because I didn't play the full season, because before that season, I was training for USA again, because I made the youth Olympic team that year before. So I played 3-on-3 in Singapore. Amazing experience.
Yeah.
Now I'm on everybody's radar. We win another state championship. I had a great summer with Georgia Elite. Olympic, or not Olympic, but whatever games were coming up, tryouts again. This is before my senior year. And in training for that, I tore my ACL. So I missed most of my senior year, came back in hindsight, maybe too soon, but
Yeah.
play in the, regionals and I don't know what they're called even now. I feel old, but play in, our regional
Yep.
state tournament. And so I'm coming back from that, not exactly playing how I want to, but doing fine. So that was a tough period. And then we lost. So it was like tough times 10. But it's crazy because I feel like life is kind of like basketball in that there's highs and there's lows, and then there's highs and there's lows. And even with the lows, something else is coming, just like in the game, right? Like you get a turnover, but you can go get a block shot, or you get a block shot, but then you turn the ball over. There's highs and lows, but something else is coming really fast. So we lose the state championship. The school year ends and I'm in Knoxville a week later, right?
Yeah.
So it's just quick. Life is like that. It's like basketball. You might have a really low point and then something else is coming. It's either going to be another low, or you can keep having these lows, or you got to like figure it out and get to a high. So yeah, it was
Rewind that, listen to it about 9 times over. That is game changing, because it's so true, right? Our decisions can either compound the situation worse, or it can change the trajectory and make it better. So that's great. So you head up to Tennessee. Now, high school to college, I mean, that's a jump. Even when you're playing at a high level of high school basketball and you're playing Olympics and things like that. Talk a little bit about the jump there, and just the skill changes and the mental changes and the physical changes.
It's so tough. I remember, gosh, this had to be my sophomore year. I think I was already committed, and I went to camp in Knoxville and playing in the summer. And I ended up playing a pickup game with like Glory Johnson and Shakina Strickland and Alicia Manning and Angie Bjorklund. I'm playing pickup with them. And I remember coming across the lane, and Glory I wasn't going for the ball. I wasn't trying to get the ball. She was on defense. I was on offense. And she just hit me. Like, no reason. I wasn't doing anything. She just checked me coming across the lane. And I remember like it hurting so bad and being like, this is what college is going to be like. And that's exactly how it is. Like, it's times 10 with physicality, with speed. I remember really being like, man, this girl is killing me, and I'm working so hard, and she is still scoring the basketball. It's just like a whole different level. But it was so fun. As soon as I got there, I just dove right in and had a blast. Like when I look back on it, I'm like, that was a lot of fun.
Yes. Well, even as tough as it is, and as hard of a transition as it is, you still show up in the first game. You get the start, and in the freshman year, you get named to the SEC all freshman team.
Yes, which was really cool because I didn't play my full freshman season. So
Yeah.
maybe I got all freshmen the next year. I don't know. But my freshman year, started the first game, was playing really well, and then had a shoulder injury, which I had hurt in high school. So it's like, again, a high in you're starting your first game, you're in the starting lineup as a freshman. Only a few freshmen have done that, and then you have to miss the rest